Sleepy Hollow Season 3, Episode 17, Delaware. Now, initially, when maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so before this episode ended, I was thinking, I'd start off this review, first thing I would do is be like, ha! I knew it. Of course, Betsy Ross is in the main, modern times. They did do a nice little twist with that and everything, but what I wasn't expecting is that they were going to kill Joe in this episode, and that really sucks. I like Joe as a character a lot, and he's only really been in the show like this season. Like this has been, the team season. Like they've had an actual team. It's not just Abby, Ichabod, and Jenny. It's a full-on team. It's like they have a team, and they kind of had that a little bit in the last season, especially getting towards like the mid-season finale of the last season and stuff like that, and how that changed things. And then this season was just like, it's just a full-on team. And then we got Foster. We, of course, Danny's a part of the team in this episode as well. And now I don't even know what to think with their dad. That blew my mind. So, they definitely had some obvious stuff like the Betsy Ross thing, which I'm still fine with. I'm excited to see how that plays out. Like I said, I wanted her in the modern times. And I like her character because she's that super badass character, but we never really got to see enough of that. So I'm looking forward to more of that. And I'm glad that we are getting it. And I'm totally fine with that, even though I definitely guessed that it was going to happen for sure. They still did a nice little twist there where it was like, the Betsy Ross that escaped, what if that was not the same Betsy Ross? And I just like the way they did that. I thought that was actually really cool. And, it was some sort of monster or whatever that went off and had kids and all this other stuff. And, the only thing that happened between that version of Betsy and Ichabod is just a letter. And that was the last time he'd ever seen her, which they mentioned. For like a split 30 seconds when they were talking about it, though, he was like, she was different when she returned. I always just, based on the last episode at least, I just assumed she disappeared and she still had her normal history as, the person that made the flag. So it surprised me when he mentioned, like, oh, she came back and had the kids and stuff, because I don't know Betsy Ross's history, to be totally honest. And I thought, maybe they're just kind of ignoring that or whatever. I didn't know what it was, so I didn't know about kids and everything like that. So when he mentioned that, I was super confused for a second because I'm like, I know for sure he said he never saw her again, but then he specifies that she was different because the only connection they ever had was between that letter, and it was just, we can't be friends anymore, basically. So that explained that, but for about 30 seconds I was a bit confused. But despite her coming into the modern times, which I guessed and may have been pretty obvious fairly early on, like I didn't think about it until the Blade and stuff like that. Like that's when I really thought that they were going to do that. Like they could easily bring her into the modern times now. That was when that really started up, because I always thought like, okay, well, she'll probably just be a character. I think I may have said that really early on, like they'll probably bring her in the modern times, and so now they're doing that. But even with that, that little, well, not a little moment, but that big moment happening and me having predicted that, they definitely did some stuff that I wasn't expecting, and it really sucks that we lost Joe. I hated that, honestly. I was like, I love his character. I think we actually have something great between Jenny and Joe. I actually enjoy their relationship because it's one of those shows where relationships aren't really that big of a deal within the series itself. So they have a normal relationship, and I was like, I'm fine with that because it didn't take away from anything, because all that happened was they were a relationship that still did all the same stuff. They still fought monsters. There wasn't that much of a difference outside of they really want to protect each other because they're in love with each other, and that was it. But they never, it wasn't the type of normal relationship in other shows where it's like it detracts from something. It actually made it better. It just made them closer, and they were just close as a team of monster hunters basically. And I like that, and I thought it could have definitely continued on. It would have been really cool. I like Joe as a character, and it just sucked that they killed him. And I kind of understand why, because at this point it was like, all right, so we have, of course, a normal team. We have Abby, we have Ichabod, we have Jenny, and then of course we had Joe, and then they added Foster, so that's 5 people. Then they added Danny, and then at the end of this we have Betsy, so that's 7 characters, and we still have 6, possibly 7 technically. You probably would have, you can kind of count 8 depending on where they go with their father, which I would assume he's going to basically be in the fold now. And maybe not as much because he does have that other family and stuff, which we've never actually seen, I don't think. He's always kind of by himself, but that's still like 8 people, and it's just crazy. It's like, I understand if that, that's the reason why they may have done it, but I feel like it's fine that they have that because they've never had it. It's always been just Abby and Ichabod, and then they have Ginny. Especially in season 2, Ginny was basically just in the show. So we had Abby, Ginny, and Ichabod, and then we had Irving, who officially became a part of the team. I'd say really during the second half of the first season, or the second half of the last season. And of course, that's gone because unfortunately Orlando Jones left the show. So he's not in it anymore. And it's just like, I like the idea of them just having a big team. I'm fine with that because they're dealing literally with a god in this episode. They could have 20 people, and I mean, obviously that's a lot, but to just make my point and exaggerate it, they could have 20 people. It's still them fighting a god and having no real idea how to, deal with that. And I just thought it was good. I was like, okay, this is great. I'm enjoying them having this big team. And then when Ginny was captured and the hidden one was like, let me take your love and use it against you. And he turns Joe into the Wendigo again. I was like, that's awesome. That was another thing I predicted, that they'd bring that back. And then it's like, oh, he believes it's gone, but he doesn't really know that. And it was like, okay, your love, now and forever will be a beast. It will be a Wendigo. And I love that idea. I was like, all right, of course they're going to save him. That's what I was thinking. I figured it wouldn't happen until the next season. I didn't realize that the next episode was the season finale, but I just assumed, like, we're so close to the end, either way, whether next week was the finale or not, they won't be able to solve this problem within the time. So I was like, this is something that's going to lead into the next season. He'll be a Wendigo, and that'll be one of the main things where they try to, turn him human again. And I thought that's what was going to happen. Because of that, we get the crazy reveal that Abby and Jenny's dad knows everything about the monsters. I'm assuming he knows about Abby and Ichabod being witnesses, but we don't really know what he knows. It was some deal. It was just a part of the deal that he left because they were in danger for their protection. And I knew that as soon as it was like, Joe turned into a Wendigo, I was like, I'm sorry. He knows everything. Like, as soon as he said the term Wendigo, I was like, this is crazy. He knows everything. And it gave me a real, like, Supernatural vibe, like the TV show, because it was, like, a little different, because in that show they knew that their father, was a hunter and everything. But it was just crazy. It was just like, this is, like, some Supernatural type stuff a little bit, except he was, like, gone permanently in this show. But it was crazy. Like, he's like, here, use this and get a little bit of blood, use the skull, use the spell. And then he gave her, like, this crazy, like, mini version of a grenade launcher. That's what it looked like, which is actually kind of cool looking. And he just knows all this stuff, and he knew Nivens, and he knew Corbin. And I'm assuming there's got to be something else that's going to come from his story, because if he left for their protection, it couldn't have just been, oh, there are some monsters, and that's it. Because Joe never left his son, or August. I guess August was the father. But he never left Joe. And they didn't have the best relationship, but he didn't just leave them and, disappear out of his life. They knew, that they were father and son. He didn't vanish from the monsters. So it had to be some specific creature that they're probably going to bring in the next season is the reason why he left. And it may have been defeated, or he may have just escaped it. I'm assuming he simply escaped so that we actually have kind of our next, big monster. And it might be something that's really crazy that would have killed his whole family and possibly him. Unless he took off. But he did start a new family and everything like that, so I would assume he did defeat it. But there might be some weird, spiritual type of thing or magic-based deal where it comes back to life, or it's just another version of it, and so it's super deadly and they fight it all over again. But, I like that reveal. That was a great surprise to me. I was like, oh, okay, this is just like a little crazy moment where Joe's going to have to find some way to kind of get out of this situation to help the team. And then the magic stuff happened. I was like, this is going to be a really cool moment because, of course, my initial thing was like, for one, Joe is turning into the Wendigo, which is awesome. So he'll be the Wendigo once again next season. And their dad is like just thrown into the craziness. And then that led to a great epic reveal, which unfortunately led to Joe's death still because Ginny had to save her father because the spell didn't work because the Hidden One's power was better than the spell. And it just really sucked. It was like, I think it was a great way to do it. I guess it was a pretty crazy way to do it. And it was one of those things where it was like they couldn't spend a lot of time on it, but I think they did spend a good amount of time on just the way they did it because he's this crazy Wendigo and stuff. And I was just thinking, like, there's got to be some way that it won't kill him, but that would be the only way he'd turn human is if he died. And pretty much like in everything supernatural, if it's in its monster form, it always reverts to being human again. Um, but it just sucked. It sucks to see him go. I was hoping, because he was breathing and stuff, I was like, okay, maybe he's just super wounded, and it wasn't like directly in his heart, but it was basically a grenade she shot at him, and it was a giant hole in his chest. I was like, I highly doubt it. I was just, as soon as it happened, I was like, I don't think this is gonna work, but I would love for something to happen, and that would be great. So sadly, that did not happen unless we get. I wouldn't even care. As much as it sucks when they do that in TV shows where it's like, we killed him, and then it's like, next episode, poof, back to life. I would not mind that in this episode because this has really been the only season with Joe as a full-on character. And I hate the idea that he might be dead already. Like, he really has just this one season as a main member of the show, and we get to actually really like him because before he was, the Wendigo, and they knew him as a kid and stuff like that. That was really it. And then this whole season, he's been a really great character as a part of the team. And then, he's gone, just before the season finale. So if they pulled a super cheap resurrection deal, I wouldn't even hate it in this case, because if it was maybe like 2 more seasons or something like that, it would still suck. But when it's something like this, and when it happens so early, it's just like, man, that it really feels like we didn't have enough time. And this is the second time I'm dealing with that, because in the show The 100, they did some crazy stuff too, and I was like, what the heck? Like, it's just crazy stuff. This whole week has been sad. But it was a really good episode. It was a great episode. Some stuff predictable. Betsy Ross, being in modern times, definitely called that one, but did a nice little twist where it made sense why she'd still be young, because I'm like, I just didn't understand, like, how could she still possibly be young? And I mentioned before, if they did it where she was only like a little bit older or something like that, something, simple like that, and she escaped like just recently, kind of the very convenient sort of deal where it's like, oh, I just escaped from there, crazy. But they did it in a way that it made perfect sense where she was just trapped there. And I actually like the way that they did that, so looking forward to seeing her kind of adjust to modern times. And we'll see how the relationship stuff goes. I'm actually curious about it. Definitely want to see more of the badass side of her character, because we haven't, we've had it in flashbacks, but not enough. So I'm looking forward to her first, like, just full episode, which I would assume is going to be the finale, because it's all hands on deck with the Hidden One officially getting full power. Like, even when he's inside of the barrier thing, he does like one little thing and all the spikes just melt, and it's like pff, nothing. Like, it was almost like a waste of time for them, and it's like, crap, they're screwed. He has his ultimate power now, and who knows what's going to happen with Pandora. I thought for sure she was going to die in this episode, but she gets her box back. She seemingly, based on the promo, goes full evil again, so I don't know if that's mind control or truly her choice where he gives her a chance or something, but I feel like that might just be her deal, because he says, like, when he's in like full power mode, it's like, your husband is no longer here, just his will to destroy the world and everything, or watch the world burn. And so it's like, I'm assuming she's choosing to go full evil again, and I just don't know what to expect with that one. But I'm definitely looking forward to this finale. Definitely has some epic, definitely a lot of great stuff in this. We got some cool stuff, Danny officially being a part of the team I actually enjoyed. Betsy being in the main timeline, which are modern times. I always say main timeline, I don't know why, but modern times, I personally enjoy. I know, like I said, a lot of people didn't want that, and I'm sure are probably disappointed, because mostly, I think a lot of people didn't want her in the main time because it's, she was, of course, like a love interest for Ichabod during the flashbacks, and I think that's what people don't want, like, oh, just another love interest character. But I don't mind that, because just like with Jenny and Joe, I think it works perfectly fine, because they're still dealing with all the same stuff, and ultimately, even beyond that, like I said, her character in itself is super awesome, so I want to see her just in general have more time. So really enjoyed that. Great reveal with their dad. Ezra just poof, he even has like his own locker. That was another reason why I was thinking of the show Supernatural. there's always like some locker or something that their dad had and stuff like that with weapons and everything. But it was just like, man, he knows all this stuff. He was the one that took the picture, that they showed in this episode, which I feel like we've seen before. So, he's the one that took the picture, and there's some mystery there where he left for their own protection, and that was part of the deal. But what was the deal? What was he fighting, and all this other stuff? So great reveals there. I actually like the little zombie thing that they had to fight at the beginning as well when they were on shore. I thought that was pretty cool because they do the flashback and he was an insurgent and killed all the people on the boat with the bomb and everything. So it's like, oh man, that sucks. And so we have all the dead bodies. And then he just pops up and he's choking Ichabod. I was like, I didn't see that coming. So I thought that was actually a nice little surprise where they have to deal with him for, I think that was like a full minute. It was just a minute. Abby slices him in half and then he tries to choke her while he's split in half. And then technically Ichabod didn't kill him. He impaled him into the ground, which is also like just sand and dirt and stuff. So he could easily just get away and crawl. But obviously he's split in half now, so it's not like he's a threat. But I thought that was a cool, just little thing to throw in at the opening. But I like this episode. Definitely has some great moments, great reveals and stuff like that. But ultimately, it just comes down to they killed off a character who I really felt didn't have enough time. He basically had one season. And that's the worst thing about it. It's not like, despite it being season 3 and he's shown up before, this is where he's really been a character. He was a recurring character, and this time he was finally like, just, here's Joe. He's a part of the story, and he helps with cases, and he does stuff. And like I mentioned, I think it was in the last episode. And it's like, oh, he had a cool little moment where he just remembered like an old trip and stuff. So he has his moments where he's able to give the cool advice and stuff. And now he's gone, so that really sucks. But despite that sad moment, very early sad moment too, it was definitely a good episode. I think leading up to the finale, I'm very excited for it. They did a lot of cool reveals. Definitely, with their dad. That's the biggest thing leading into the next season. So I'm looking forward to what they do with that. Curious to see, definitely Abby as well as Ichabod's reaction. Like, total surprise, but. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And naturally, I have to ask what you guys are expecting for the season finale and what you want to see. But of course, with this loss of a character, I definitely have to ask, what do you guys feel about losing Joe as a character? I, of course, feel it's way too soon because he was such a good character. And like I said, I feel like if there's any reason that I'll accept, it is the fact that they are making a giant team. Plus the surprise addition of their dad, the expected addition of Betsy, but I can understand that. And honestly, Danny being a part of the team was a bit of a surprise as well. But I still wish he made it. I mean, like I said, they're dealing with a god. They could use more people. They could use 8 or 9 people to fight against the powers of a god at full power now. So. It was like, man, it would still work because it's not like, oh, they're so amazing now they stop all the enemies. It's still, they're fighting a god, at least for the season finale. I mean, maybe next season they'd have to work something out with the weaker enemies, but, at least where they are now, it's like, man, it would totally work to have all of them as a team working together. But definitely want to know how you guys feel about that. Of course, what you guys are expecting to see in the finale, what you want to see in the finale. And of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.